Good afternoon and welcome to P3 Professional Pop-Up Panel Conversation. I am Darnella Michelle Large and I will be your facilitator for today. Thank you so much for investing 40 minutes of your day to explore careers within the business and the healthcare field.
Thank you.
And today we want to recognize and introduce our guests. Our guests are Legacy Homes GR and the Wisdom Center Counseling Services.
Hey,
Thank you for having us.
appreciate it.
All right, guests, please ensure that your devices are muted as well as your video screen. And if you have any questions, please utilize the chat feature. And now today I want to welcome our guests. We have Tanya Powell May, Integrity, Numbers, Professionalism, Service, and Teamwork. For Tanya Powell May, these are not only the cornerstone of her business, but also her life. With over 30 years of experience in finance and real estate, Tanya does it all. Tanya began her career as a CPA and later obtained her license in real estate, where she is a mega agent with Legacy Homes GR. Tanya, along with her team, posted 2 million in closed volume and over 100 units in 2018. When Tanya isn't on the hunt for homes or busy providing advice and financial education to her clients and friends, you can find her relaxing with her family or sneaking off to any place warm and sunny with her husband Roger and 3 children, Parker, Xavier, and Madison Tillman, who are her pride and joy. Welcome, Tanya. And we also want to welcome Samuel Jones. Samuel Jones is trained as a multicultural therapist, engaging in both family systems and cognitive behavioral therapies. For clients dealing with severe traumas and fear-based illnesses, he uses accelerated resolution therapy. Serving as West Michigan's first drop-in center, he brings years of experience working with homeless youth and their families. Mr. Jones' work spreads to now working with nonprofit, churches, youth-serving organizations, and state agencies. As an entrepreneur by heart and founder of the Wisdom Counseling Services, he also supports budding Black businesses with consulting and resource support. So I just want to say thank you so much for just taking this time to be with us. I just know that this conversation is going to be rich. And so right now I'm going to start with the first question, and we'll start with Mrs. Powell May. When you were our student's age, about 16 or 17 years old, did you see yourself doing the work that you're currently doing?
That's a great question. 16 to 17 seems like years ago because I'm a little bit over 50 now. But I always had an inclination to numbers. I loved my math classes, not so much my science and my history classes, but I absolutely loved math, and it came very, very naturally to me. And that's why I gravitated to accounting when I went to the University of Michigan. And then I had the opportunity to get my real estate license and found that I was able to use those same skill sets, but to work with people instead of numbers on a piece of paper. And I absolutely fell in love with what I do. So today I'm a CPA and a licensed associate broker or real estate agent.
Perfect. What about you, Samuel? Mr. Jones, I apologize. Did you see yourself being a therapist when you were 16 or 17 years old?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. You know, when I was in high school, I had a desire to be in fashion, and make my own apparel. I was always at home scribbling and drawing like I wanted to be the next For Us By Us owner. Some of y'all don't even know what that is. FUBU, for those that do know. That's what I wanted to do. And it's funny. I also played football. And for me, back in the day, like that was my way out. It was like, I'm gonna be really good at academics. I'm gonna try to draw me some designs, and I'm gonna get into football and try to make my way out of school. And once I did get to college, it was through football, and it was partly due to my academics as well. I tried really hard, because if it wasn't school, I was going to the Army or something. That's what my mom and dad told me. And so I had the opportunity to pursue football and pursue education at the time. I went to Grand Valley, and in that time frame, I just was kind of like, I don't know if I want to be a teacher. Like, everybody seems like they're being a teacher. Everybody seems like they're, going into some level of education to be a PE guy. And that was the route. You would either, get your educational degree, make sure you come back, pour into the schools. And that's what some people did. But for me, it was like, well, I want to be the people that have the money, what I'm saying, and make sure that people have opportunities to, ask me for money and being philanthropists. And said the best way for me to do that was going to business. And so I changed my major several times and ended up going into business and got my bachelor's in then. But then it's funny, like when I started working, as opposed to when I first was in high school, I was like, man, like I found myself talking to people all the time. And I'm an introvert, meaning that I like being by myself. I like being solo dolo and not dealing with a whole bunch of other people. And yet I'm very relational. And so I found myself listening to a lot of people, talking to a lot of people on what we call the sales floor in retail. And in that, I discovered that I really care for people around me. And so I then went back to school to get my master's degree, to get my counseling degree. And so from 16, 17, I never thought that was going to be the path that I was going to go for.
Mm-hmm. That's funny, because I was into basketball, probably like you were into football.
Yeah.
So life revolved around basketball. But I had a great accounting teacher. I went to Ottawa Hills High School.
Yeah.
I didn't know any accountants, didn't even have a clue, but I fell in love with accounting through that first introductory accounting class that I had at Ottawa Hills.
That's it.
That's great. I'm glad that you mentioned that teachers have the potential to change the trajectory of a student's life. So I'm so glad you mentioned that. And my next question, I'll start with you, Samuel. Mr. Jones. What educational skills or requirements are needed for someone who is interested in your career field?
Yeah, in order to be a therapist, you do need a master's level education. Now, I will tell you this, at certain levels, there's different levels of therapists. So for example, let's just say you want to be a social worker. If you want to be a social worker, meaning you want to deal with systems, people, individuals at state levels, maybe even or at agencies, all you need is a bachelor's level education. But then if you want to go to the kind of next level of money and career, I would say get ready to do a master's level of education, because in that, what that does is that opens up so many more doors for licensure. And what I did as a licensed professional counselor is I went to school for a bachelor's, didn't necessarily do the social work route. Like I said, I did business, but then I went and came back to school to get a counseling degree, because I felt like that was going to be where I would be proficient and grow in. And so all you really need is those things. In terms of just key qualities that go with that, I think you need to have a listening ear. You need to practice being empathetic, right? You can be empathetic right now in your classroom with somebody who's dealing with something, and be like, you know what? I don't know what that means to go through that, but I just want to be there to support you. That's a quality to have, right? In addition to that, it's important to be genuine. Are you transparent? Are you honest with other people? And then lastly, do you like to listen? And then based off of that listening, communicate with that person. So I would think that those are some of the key things that you can do to both go after that educational level, as well as some of the qualities that you need to grow and to be a therapist.
That's great. And I hope that students take away some of those skills. Again, as you mentioned, can start as early as high school, making sure that you're listening effectively. And so I'm so glad you mentioned that. And what about you, Mrs. Powell May? What are some of the skills or requirements needed?
So I have to talk about both careers, but I know you invited me here to talk about real estate. So I started again, like I said, in accounting, and I've been doing that for 30 years, but I get to do both now. So that's really, really important. So if you enjoy numbers, you enjoy solving problems, I am also an introvert. People wouldn't know that, but I like get my peace from quiet. But I'm just like Mr. Jones, I enjoy people and helping people and serving people. So real estate allows me to do that. So to become a licensed realtor, and I'll speak to this for your students, you need to really be at least 18 years old. You don't have to have a college degree, but you do have to take a 40-hour pre-license class. Those are offered in person or online. With COVID, a lot of companies are offering it online. But you take the equivalent of 40 hours of study. Then you have to pass a state real estate exam. There's a lot of terminology and just making sure that you understand the language of real estate. Once you pass that exam, you sign with a brokerage. I'm a part of Keller Williams, is the name of my brokerage, but I work with them. So I have a team. I started as an independent solo agent back in 2015, and then I expanded and added a team. So now I have 9 agents who work with me on the Legacy Homes GR team, and we just continue to grow. And we are always looking for great people to join our team. And what the qualities and characteristics are of a good team member are somebody, you got to have some hustle to work in real estate. Real estate isn't a job that you can punch the clock at 8 o'clock and go home at 5 and just do your job. You have to hunt for your business, right? This is a lead generation business. It's commission only. There's some pluses and minuses to being a commission only in a commission only position, but you can make as much as you desire to make, right? You don't have a set salary. If you hustle, if you have great relationships with people, if people trust you and like you and know that you're good at your job, they'll want to do business with you in real estate. So I encourage as many young people as possible to, if they're interested in real estate, to get your real estate license. My son Parker got his license when he was a junior at Northwood. He was playing football at Northwood University and came home in the summers and got his real estate license and did some internships with me. And now he's the director of operations for my team. So it's a great way to start a career. In terms of accounting, that requires a bachelor's. Actually, now it's a master's degree. So you get a master's degree in accounting and you can become a CPA.
Wow, so that's good to know. So if a student they're graduating high school and they're 18 years old, they can study to become licensed realtors as early as 18 years old.
Absolutely.
Perfect, great information, and I'm taking notes as we discuss this. Perfect. And so that kind of leads me into, are there any internships or opportunities students can explore with you guys? Like, I know that therapy may be differently. I know that some people say because of HIPAA, but since, Mrs. Powell May mentioned internships, what are your thoughts? Do you guys provide that to young people? And whoever wants to jump in can jump in.
Yeah, I absolutely do. I love to have at least 2 students working with me at any one time. Right now, I don't have any because of COVID, but this is definitely a career where you can learn the business before you actually get into the business. So definitely open to that.
Yeah, in the world of therapy, there's a thing called peer navigators. And peer navigators often cases are individuals who, for example, in the scope of you being at school, are willing to co-lead or co-facilitate small groups and discussions around different things like restorative circles, for example. Some of you schools might be familiar with that, where you're in a restorative circle with a couple different people because you're trying to navigate or deal with the issue. That's kind of the scope of what that would look like in therapy. There's not necessarily an internship per se at 16 and 17, but I tell you, once you do take that next step in college, that world opens up for you. And there's opportunities for you to, step into some realms that allow you to have work type internships for that.
Perfect. Great information. And so as a professional of color, how diverse is your particular industry? Are there barriers you had to overcome? Like, I want our students, especially our students of color, I want them to kind of know, what is it like, if they were to explore this career path further, what are some of the barriers they would have to endure to reach the level of success that the two of you have reached? And I'm open to whoever wants to jump in first.
Mr. Jones.
Okay. So I would say this. I'll tell you my experience first, and then I'll tell you what I've learned from this process. When I was coming up, which is not that long ago, but long enough ago I can remember, when I was coming up, there weren't any individuals that I was looking up to per se to say, hey, I know of these people in my pathway when I first started. Right. I know of someone that is, a therapist per se. And so when I got into my master's degree, I started to discover that there were two or three. Right. And then there was someone who was a psychologist, which is another form of a mental health therapist. And so my network began to expand with individuals who looked at me, but it was still not that many people. And unfortunately, that's still the case for our career path. It's getting better, but I'll tell you why it's getting better is because the stigma attached with being Black and being in mental health or having mental health issues, is continuing to lessen. So what happens is when you get into your career path or into college, you might initially feel, man, there ain't that many of us in here. That's a good thing, though. It means there's an opportunity for you to expand and grow in a pathway that is still emerging for our community as being people of color. But in that, additionally, when you get out, you may find that it's good to get connected with networks. For example, in Grand Rapids, we have a couple networks now of people who are individuals of color, what we call BIPOCs. And in many cases, there are opportunities now to grow that. And so I could think of, unfortunately, still only 12 to 13 men in the Grand Rapids area that are clinicians of color. That's a problem. That means we need you. That means we need you to come on down the pathway. But just know that by the time you get there, it still may be somewhere that's emerging, and we definitely need you to do it, and get into this pathway because we need people that are here for mental health.
Absolutely. I would ditto a lot of what Mr. Jones just said. When I got into accounting 30 years ago, I went to the University of Michigan, and in my class of a couple hundred in the business school there I can count on one hand the number of African American students who were pursuing their CPA degree. As I've, gotten to know different networks, the National Association of Black Accountants, just other opportunities, other groups, I've become connected with other African American accountants all over the country, but we're still well underrepresented in the field. And the financial, once you become a CPA, you will never have to worry about a job ever. Like, you are going to be in demand, period. For the rest of your life, you never have to worry about a job because you're going to be in demand. That's how important it is. And then in terms of real estate, it's surprisingly about the same, right? Over the last 5 years, I've seen more African Americans in West Michigan, at least, than there were 5 years ago. But in our association, there may be a little over 1,000, maybe 1,500 real estate agents here in West Michigan. And I would say half dozen, or no, not a half dozen, but probably a dozen African American real estate agents, a couple dozen maybe, out of 1,500 people. It's just, we are underrepresented in both arenas.
Wow, thank you so much for sharing that. So with that being the case, how important is representation? Like, how I know from where I am, I speak a lot about the importance. I know when I do professional developments, I talk about it, but I want to know from you too, how important is representation as it relates to your career field and just making sure students can see someone that looks like them so they can continue to explore that particular field.
Yeah, I think it's immensely important in my profession. You know, you have individuals that when they're coming to therapy, um, you would appreciate someone who has the same culture or at least shares the same culture as you do. At least that way you have some what's called rapport, meaning that we can talk and understand and navigate just at least at a bare minimum some things based off of some level of understanding. There are some things that individuals that may not look like you, they don't understand by their experience. And I'm not just talking about affluence, which means money. I'm not just talking about class. I'm talking about, man, like they don't get me because they don't understand what it means to be black or brown, you know, or male or female. So those things are really important to navigate when you're trying to figure out, like, man, if I want to jump into a career path like mental health, I'm going to know that there are going to be people who appreciate me going into that field, being 16, 17, 20, 21 when I graduate, and then being able to talk to people that look like me and know that they appreciate that. So it's a hugely, immensely important, especially in the mental health career.
Mm-hmm. And I would say both of us, we're going to help anybody, whether they look like us or not. Like we work with everybody, right, in our field. But it does your heart good to be able to help someone who looks like you to do better. Like we do financial education and coaching. I do taxes still for people. I'm doing business consulting for people who open their own businesses. So to have somebody, sometimes it's like who looks like you, but somebody really at the root of it, somebody you know, like, and trust, right? To be working on your behalf is really kind of the benefit that we get as African American accountants and real estate agents. Like people just have because a lot of people have never gone through the experience before, they want somebody that they know who's going to be looking out for them and doing what, doing what's in their best interest. So that's really the benefit that I see.
Excellent, excellent. So I guess, our young people, and a lot of these questions come from our young people, one thing they know is I want to make all this money. But my question is, what do you like the most besides the salary or the pay? What do you like the most about your career, your job, and what do you like the least?
Mm-hmm. So for me, I'm going to take that one. I like most serving people and helping other people to become leaders. I am naturally inclined to leadership, and I get to do it every day in my job. I get to lead others and help them to become better leaders. Also, I love the flexibility of my job. My family is very important to me. So if I need to travel or be somewhere for my family, I get to do that. And my business continues to go, whether I'm there or not, my business is happening. So those are the pieces that I love the most about it. The things that I probably don't like the most is, like, you have to have hustle to do well in this business, right? You have to wake up every day, okay, Lord, who am I going to help today, right? And really go at it that way. For me, I'm trying to build a business that's sustainable, that's going to be a legacy for my children's children. So how to build a business that's sustainable, that's going to, last longer than me. So.
Yeah, and I echo Mrs. Powell May in the fact that I love helping people. You know, that's the best part of my job as well. Helping, supporting, figuring out how to problem solve, making sure that people become solution focused. You know, that people are working through, some of the thoughts and feelings and behaviors that they have every single day. It's an awesome opportunity to help people help themselves in a sense. And I think that with that, there is a lot of flexibility in this career. Let's just say you don't want to do mental health 40 hours a day. You don't have to. You can still make a pretty good amount of money by doing that and maybe doing something else if that's what you desire to do, or if you want to have a dual career. That's the cool thing about mental health. The worst part, I would say, of this is that, in many cases, you may feel drained at the end of the day, end of the week from helping so many people. If you pour, pour, and pour, it's so important that you also make sure you digest and or have something pour into you. It's super important that you have and practice really good what we call self-care. And with self-care, that could mean, going out and talking to your own therapist as a therapist. It could mean going to exercise. It could mean going to get some sleep. And it could also mean just essentially getting something to eat every single day and eating right. And so I think that it's super important that when you are pouring out so much in a role like myself, that you also have really good things pouring into you as well.
Excellent. And I especially love that you guys tap into the fact that your personal life, you selected a career that fits your personal life. Like you know the importance of hustle, or you know the importance, but you recognize that there's some times where you just want some off time. So, this job has to be flexible. And I'm so glad you mentioned that, the flexibility piece. When students are exploring, their careers, make sure that you find something that aligns with your personal lifestyle. So I love that. What is your perception of the job outlook for this, your particular career field? And I'll start with you, Mr. Jones.
Job outlook. So I would say, and maybe give me a little more clarity, what you're looking for specifically.
So, some positions kind of die off. I know that back in the day, we may have had, and what's coming to mind, remember ladies who used to sell those little cigarettes in clubs, or, just like some jobs, I don't know why that popped in my mind, but some jobs just kind of phase out. If you think about, technology and typewriters, so just some things just phase out. So what is the job outlook for your particular career? Do you see it long lasting? Do you see it evolving, maybe robots becoming therapists? I mean, what do you see like maybe 30 years from now?
Yeah, mental health is one of those arenas that's in what we call a subdivision of the medical arena. And in it, often cases with mental health, it's best done with a person sitting across from you and or sitting in a group. Best done that way. So you're talking about being able to, in the next 10 years, at least 10, 15 years, individuals who are medically trained and able to provide prescriptions and or support if you're at that level, and or just doing what's called talk therapy. Now, I will tell you this, right now you have a whole lot of apps, a whole lot of applications out there that will and can help you with certain things in regards to your own self-care, that can help you, with your mindfulness. Those are just terms. I'll give you terms today. Mindfulness, and in addition to just things that can help you just deal with anxiety and depression. There are apps that are out there, and they're getting even more sound and savvy as they understand how we operate as humans. But in that, it's really important that you know that in many cases, humans do best with dealing with humans, because no one thing, no application, no computer could fully understand how to work with a person. That is my perspective on that. So I think for the next 25, you at least got 25 years. All right. So that's what you can do.
Perfect. And I love how you mentioned the apps, because again, I couldn't think offhand, but I see a lot of meditation, Zen music. And so, just to hear that human contact is critical. So I'm glad you mentioned that. And what about you, Mrs. Powell May?
Yeah. So like I said before, in terms of if people choose a CPA path, they're going to be there. Opportunities are going to be there. That's not going to change. And, you have pretty competitive salaries and things like that. Like in West Michigan, I think the average salary for a beginning CPA might be $80,000 to $120,000. So it's a very financially, it's a pretty lucrative career choice. In real estate, what we're seeing is there are companies like, I don't know if they've heard of, like Zillow. A lot of homeowners are starting their home search using companies like Zillow. They're really being very aggressive about trying to cut into the commissions that real estate agents make. So they're buying up companies, like they just bought up a company called Showing Time that we all use as realtors to get into properties. So they're really trying to impede on the space in the real estate space. However, the thing that keeps us and sets us apart are the relationships that we have, and that won't go away, right? So it's a great industry. It's super competitive right now because there's not a lot of inventory, really not just in West Michigan, but all over the country. So it's super competitive from a buyer standpoint right now in real estate. But in terms of the career outlook, um, it's fabulous.
I love that. I love that. And so we have about 4 more minutes. So I'm going to ask just 2 more questions because again, this conversation is so rich and I'm really honored and thrilled that the two of you can be here. And I just want to make sure that I capture everything that we set out to do. So as our young people continue to navigate and explore careers, what piece of advice would you give someone who is interested in your career field? And I'll start with you, Mrs. Powell May.
So to become a CPA, you're going to invest at least probably 6 years toward your college education to be able to even sit for the CPA exam. So being prepared for not only getting a bachelor's degree, but getting that additional education with a master's is going to be pretty important. And just for real estate, for me, I'm just like jump in, do an internship with somebody or to see if that's something that you would like to do and just go for it. A lot of people tell me they're going to do real estate, but they haven't done it. Just jump in. And there are people who will be there to support you. So that's my advice.
Yeah. My advice would literally just be, if you have any desire to be a therapist, what it requires now at your age, whether you're 14, 15, 16, or 17 or older, it requires you practicing these things now. And that's just being meaning, are you a listener? Are you willing to communicate? Are you empathetic? Are you willing to help your brother or your sister, with the simple things in life? I think that sometimes we can get involved in trying to do so much and try to obtain a role that we don't look at the qualities and characteristics of just being a human being. And if you can practice just being human with your friend or with someone who you might have been in a playground fight with the other day, hey, it's a great time to practice right now. And so my word of advice to you is just continually practice being instead of trying to focus so much on the doing part, which comes later on down the road once you get the role. Whether that's being a real estate agent, accountant, a teacher, professor, whatever that is that you desire to be, and desiring to do. Make sure you practice the being part right now, because it starts right now.
Excellent. I love that, practice being. And Mrs. Powell May, that's true. I am going to tap into you because I definitely want this to be a part of my side hustle. So I'm definitely tapping into you. It's not going to just be words. I'm going to actually put some action behind that. And so again, the last question, and I know that Mr. Jones, you kind of talked about it, but what is just one takeaway? If our kids, don't see you again to maybe 2-3 years later, or a lot of our freshmen now turn into seniors, give them one piece of advice that they can put in their toolkit and maybe pull it up later, besides the actual just being. Can you just give us one more tip for our young people so that they can start to explore and navigate this whole career readiness journey?
Yeah, find yourself a mentor. Number one, find yourself a mentor, because in mentorship, there is an opportunity where someone knows, just by happenstance, a little bit more than you do. Maybe they have a little bit different type of experience than you do. And in that, when I was in high school, I had a heck of mentors, a whole many mentors. And with those mentors, it helped me understand and see things that I might have made mistakes in had I not listened to them.
And what about you, Mrs. Powell May?
My word of encouragement would be, you can do it. You can be anything that you set your mind to be. I also appreciate finding a mentor or someone that you can look up to who is doing well, like doing what you want to do, or just living life the right way and in a way that that you can see yourself being. You can be and do anything that you want to be. And the person who owns Keller Williams, Gary Keller, says you can be any person or anywhere you want to be in 5 years. And I know that to be true from personal experience. So it's all about having some discipline, having a vision for your life. That is super important because some people just exist. But where do you see yourself? Where do you want to be? Even if you can't see yourself, where do you want to be? Having a vision, writing it down, all of that stuff is important, and it helps to shape who you will become. But you can do anything. That's my word of encouragement.
Perfect. Well, I just want to take this time to thank, first of all, Mrs. Tanya Powell May is not just, a friend, but she's a sorority sister. She's near and dear to my heart. She's our personal realtor. We definitely promote her. She is just a woman of excellence, and she provides quality realtor experience. So I love her from the depths of my heart. And Mr. Samuel Jones, I love, the fact that I reached out to him. He was like, whatever you need. So it's just really great to just have this wonderful, let me smile for the camera. All right. It's just really great to have this dynamic conversation with you guys. And so I just want to share a little bit of information for you students. So that if you want to continue to research these careers that are in the counseling field that Mr. Jones referenced, as well as Mrs. Powell May about CPA, realtor, all of that, please tap into ONET resources. Within that platform, it provides the longevity of careers. It gives you the breakdown in salary, or you can tap into Road Trip Nation. Also, I believe in connection and community. I think that it is vital. So if you have two people willing to invest the time to pour into you, and they're saying, look, students, tap into me, educators. If you want us to speak to your classroom, here is Mrs. Powell May email along with Mr. Jones email. Please make sure that you tap into those resources again, because they can present you with just a wealth of information to get your students thinking about those careers and to get them on that career path. Because it's one thing to hear from a teacher, it's another to hear from an educational consultant, but to hear from the people who are in the trenches day in and day out, that information is gold. And so again, I wanted to say thank you for your time and just have an amazing day.